So ways to improve security, you need to look at how you're storing it, how you're transporting it, who are your personnel and how are you monitoring those personnel? What are your disposal methods? What are your responses in terms of all of these different steps and when anything occurs, your response to any activity involving the anhydrous ammonia? And what are your record keeping procedures? You know, you got to be really careful. People who really know the system and, you know, trailers get stolen, or, you know, you have people working together with the vendor. And so you buy X number of pounds of anhydrous ammonia and they skim off some. They skim off a few dozen pounds in a load in order to cook the books. And if they have too much access to the books without double checking, without some sort of way to cross-reference purchase orders, payments, prices, and things where you could detect any kind of attempt to cook the books and steal some of the material through procurement or use. You know, we used 80 pounds in this field, but you write it down as 90 or 85, and you slip 5 pounds away, and you do that through the course of a month, and you sneak away with 20 pounds. Anyway, how easy would it be for anhydrous ammonia to disappear from your facility? And, you know, there's the cooking the books that I just described, but there's also just vanishing. Somebody literally coming onto your site and stealing it. So you need to maintain inventory so you always know exact quantities and that your records are somehow cross-referenced, cross-checked in a way that you know what you really are doing. And if you say 80 pounds went onto that field, how do you verify that 80 pounds really went onto that field and not 80 on out the door? 75 went on the field and 5 went into somebody's secret stash. So you need to make sure you maintain proper security. Performing walkthroughs, providing good lighting, installing security systems, hiring security guards, setting up alarms, cameras. With the internet and the advancements of cameras and motion detectors and all of these other things, a good security expert should be able to set something up that would be pretty damn good for most operations today. It was harder 20 years ago, but now there's really no excuse to at least have a very strong effort to do the right things and having systems that are tamper evident. So for example, if anybody tries to disable your alarm or anybody tries to, you know, spray paint over the camera from behind before they go in there, it immediately triggers an alarm. Transportation is often a weak link. As I mentioned earlier, you need a paper trail. You need to ship anhydrous ammonia in locked vehicles. You need to go directly to delivery, no stopping. You need to make sure that you avoid areas that might be high target areas, tunnels and bridges and things where you might be carjacked. It can happen. Exercising extreme caution if it is necessary to stop. You've got to think of it like you're driving an armored car with cash. It's not quite the same idea, but it is very similar. You are driving something that needs to be kept secure, and there are people who want to take it from you. No picking up hitchhikers, no talking about your activities on CB radios, no discussing your cargo with those not involved. Now, for Department of Transportation requirements, you have to make sure that your transportation documents and manifest includes what's on board, but you don't advertise it. Always telephone your customer if you find you'll be late for delivery, etc., etc. Do you know your employees? Do background checks. Know who has access to storage facilities, who has access to records, who handles your bookkeeping and payments to your vendors, etc. Make sure you have good hiring practices, good labor relations. You don't want disgruntled employees. Make sure you're doing things like fingerprinting, photographing your employees who handle any hazardous materials, and other employees know to be on the lookout. Adopt a company security whistleblower protection policy. So if somebody is a whistleblower, if somebody does see something happening, an employee behaving in a way that they don't think they should, or just suspicious activity, the whistleblower doesn't become a target. Again, all of these things are important. If any keys are put out, there should be a combination. And now we have all kinds of combinations of security keys and access codes. You can use voice print, retinal detection, fingerprint access, key cards. There's so many different things that can be used, but something as simple as an RFID key card can be tagged to an individual person. And if that person loses their key card, you can immediately shut it off. Unlike a key, where even if you mark it as do not duplicate, somebody who wants to do illegal activity probably knows somebody who will illegally duplicate a key. So again, you got to think about, how would a criminal think? How could we get around your security policies? And when an employee moves on to a new job, how do we make sure that their access can't be utilized by somebody else? What about disposal? How are you disposing of waste material? That's also important. Maintain security over material which is being disposed of until it is claimed by the appropriate authorities. So if you have some waste material that needs to be disposed of, there are procedures for that. You have a formal response plan. Well, if you're one of the coolers around here, yeah, you've got a response plan because you've got more than the 10,000 pound, what is it called? The, not the trigger quantity, but it's essentially the quantity that requires that you have a PSM. Do your employees know about your response plan? Have you properly trained everybody? So you need to have that emergency plan, even if you don't have to have a full PSM and RMP, the risk management plan. You do need to have an emergency response plan. This is a safety issue. You need to have emergency response numbers. You need to have the appropriate authority. So there's the medical emergencies as well as the release or leak emergencies that you have to notify local authorities. In our area, it would be the Monterey County Health Bureau or Department of Health. What about suspicious behavior? Anybody who seems unfamiliar with the details of using fertilizers, they act nervous, seem uneasy or vague, avoiding eye contact. This is the kind of behavior, it's like, does this person really belong here around our ammonia? Demands immediate possession of purchased materials instead of future delivery. So you buy something and you want it right now. So that's if you're a distributor. Somebody comes in and wants to buy something, grab it, hook it up to their truck or put it in their truck and leave. That's a red flag. Ask for material in smaller individual containers rather than bulk. Most legitimate industrial operations, if they're buying 600 pounds of something, they want 600 pounds in a large container or in large drums or whatever is appropriate rather than small individual containers. They want to pay cash instead of check or credit card. Again, these are things that are red flags. So notify your manager, notify law enforcement. You should have policies for how to deal with that. So in summary, anhydrous ammonia is the pure form of ammonia with no water. Although it is a colorless gas at normal pressure and temperature, is stored at a liquid under pressure. Anhydrous ammonia is very strong as a base, so it's an alkaline material with a high pH number, the opposite of an acid. Tends to penetrate skin tissue and cause severe damage. Always be very careful when transferring or applying anhydrous ammonia. Use appropriate PPE or personal protective equipment. Follow the anhydrous ammonia instructions for what PPE is required. You should know that acronym, PPE. Always have first aid materials available for immediate use, especially the immediate eye wash and access to a shower should there be a larger exposure. Anhydrous ammonia can be used by small scale or large scale manufacturers of the illegal drug methamphetamine. Tampered tanks and valves increase the potential for unintentional exposure and injury. Always examine storage and handling procedures and develop a security plan that covers storage, transportation, personnel, disposal, and response. All of these things. Suspicious behavior, always be on the lookout. Make sure people know what kinds of things to be watching for, depending on the type of operation you're working with. If anybody's dealing with moving, transporting, applying fertilizers or anhydrous ammonia for any purpose, you should know what the heck they're doing. You should know everybody. They should have appropriate company clothing, name tag, access badge for sites, documentation for what they're doing. All of that stuff makes sure that people look like they belong. They act like that they belong because they know the procedures. And if somebody does know your procedures and leaves the company, they could easily tell somebody how to deal with those procedures, maybe pass on a shirt or a name badge or something and try and sneak one over. So how do you deal with making sure that people with knowledge of your operation can't somehow use that knowledge to steal something in the future? How do you close that gap with personnel turnover? So that is it for safety and security of anhydrous ammonia.